You're listening to The Real Well Show with Kathy Fetke, the real estate investor's resource.
2020 was supposed to be the year of clarity, of great vision. And instead, it seems to be clouded with a lot of confusion about what's coming next as we face the second wave of COVID, and as we start to see more and more people we know getting this virus, some having no issues with it, while others being really severely affected, not really knowing what treatments work and fights over that. So it's been a challenging time. And of course, add in the social distancing and people losing their jobs. And there's been more depression, more alcohol abuse, more drug abuse, potentially more divorces. And at the same time, maybe a baby boom, depending on how much people like being together all the time at home while isolated from everybody else. So lots of changes this year. On today's show, I'm bringing in our editor and producer of The Real Well Show, Jill Benez. And I'm so happy to have her here today because she's had quite a journey through a lot of this in the past and is coming out so strong. And part of that is her investment in real estate that has created a stability that, again, is helping her get through these challenging times. So I'm Kathy Fetke. Welcome to The Real Well Show. Jill Benez, so great to have you here today.
Hi, Kathy.
It must be interesting to be on this side of it.
It is. It's different being on here. Hello, everybody. I'm used to being behind the scenes, so this is a first for me.
Yeah, Jill has been with Real Wealth for how long?
Almost 7 years now.
Wow. Okay. And she is the person who basically makes this happen. She's the editor and of our show and comes up with great ideas. I mean, some of our best shows with the best response came from your ideas. So the purpose of having you on today is I've known you've had a lot to say. You're a really, really special person. You've been through so much, and I believe your message is going to inspire a lot of people today. So I appreciate you being willing to be honest and vulnerable with the world.
Thank you. I know I'm a little opinionated. Yes. Somewhat. Sometimes that gets me a little trouble on Facebook. No, but I feel like
everyone's in trouble on Facebook. Trust me.
Yes, they are. Yeah, being as authentic as possible, my most authentic self. But I feel like I have you to thank for that because leading me to where I came to be here at Real Wealth Network, I was just very unhappy part of my life in corporate world and feeling like, who am I and why am I doing what I'm doing? And just coming to Real Wealth Network and getting to work with you and discover the things that I'm passionate about and actually have people that I work with that actually care about me and ask me, what do you like to do? What do you enjoy doing? Has allowed me to be accepted for who I am and my talents and my gifts, and has opened up that authentic part of myself and allowed me to, you always sometimes mostly feel like you have to be one way at work and one way at home, and you can't, there's that hiding of who you are. And I feel like at Real Wealth, you can be real. I mean, I know that sounds silly, but it's true. And I'm so grateful for you helping me to become my authentic self and do the things that I really love to do.
Oh, well, you've over 7 years, you've bounced around in almost every position, and tried out different positions. And then it was like, one day we realized you really loved editing, and that was something you went to school for. It's like, well, why aren't you editing for us? We need that. And, the webinars and the YouTube videos and the Real Well Show. And that's where you seem to thrive. But let's just start with how we met, because like you said, you were not in the greatest place. And I think it's a place that a lot of people could relate to today. And that's why I'm really appreciative that you'll share it. We were looking for, what was the job we were looking for? An event person? Or
you were looking for someone for the front desk, a receptionist.
Oh, front desk. Okay.
Yeah.
So we happened to be in town. We got all these applications, and I told Rich, hey, if anyone can just come in and interview like tomorrow, we're in town. Let's just see if any of these people will. And you were willing to. So we stayed an extra day and waited for this Jill woman to show up for the interview. And as I recall, I don't remember exactly. I think you came running up and was like, "Hey, can someone help me bring my bike inside?" Is that how it went?
Yeah, I had my bicycle. I rode my bike 5 miles, and I actually had like walking pneumonia at the time, but I was really sick. But I really wanted that job.
So you were in a dress.
And I biked in my dress.
Yeah, like a tight corporate dress,
Yes.
And I just, when I saw you sweaty and sick and at your first interview with a financial company, showing up on a bike, I'm like, that's it, man. She's it.
I was so nervous. I was just like, oh my God, this is Walnut Creek. And Walnut Creek, for people that don't know, it's a little fancy. And here I am on a bike. I'm like, oh, these people are just going to see me on my bike, and they're not going to like me, But no, Rich. Okay, so this is Rich. You guys all know Rich Fetke, but he picks my bike up like it's a leaf. It goes up in the air, flying.
He's like, no problem. Let me carry your bike. He just
carries my bike up the stairs. And you and me, Kathy, we met, and we were both like, have we met before? Have I met you? Like, you look so familiar. And we both had this sort of feeling like, have we met before? And I just felt like, you have this feeling like somebody's going to be important to you in your life. And I've always had good luck with people named Kathy in my life. What really good Kathys. Kathys are great. And yeah.
I'm so glad you think so.
I got the job.
Yeah. And you were very honest. I don't know if it was in that interview, but over time, you were very honest about what was going on in your life at the time. I think because your resume revealed that you hadn't been working for a while. So if you don't mind sharing kind of where you were living at the time and what you were going through at the time.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So yeah, there were some hard times. I had been working some temp jobs. I kind of shot myself in the foot. I guess you could say I'd had a bad year. 2013 was a bad year. I had at the end of a relationship. I had my son, who was like 12, had decided to go live with his dad, and they'd moved out of state. So that was a personal loss that was devastating for me. And then I'd lost my job. So then I was trying to work some temp jobs in the city, and I didn't even really like what I was doing. I didn't like it. I'd been working as like an admin assistant type positions in corporate world. And that wasn't even what I went for school for. And so at this point, I kind of got in the middle of the summer of 2013, and I wasn't being healthy. Okay, let's be honest. I was
gonna get to that. You were in recovery at the time.
I was in recovery. I just gotten in recovery when I met you. Just a few months.
And you were living kind of in a halfway house.
I was with 13 other people, and this was all new for me. So all getting up to that point, I just sort of hit a wall where I was like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this with my life? I don't even like what I'm doing. And I kind of just reached my hand out and just said, help,
Yeah.
Because
you kind of had hit bottom, I think, when we met you.
Oh, I definitely hit bottom. I really had. And it was embarrassing and shameful for someone in my life to admit that, like, I'd let that happen to myself. But I was grieving and all of those things, feelings of like, I'm a failure in my life, and I think I was really lucky that my parents, and they just said, pick yourself up, we're going to help you. And living in a house with 13 people that were very different from me and had very different backgrounds, and admitting maybe I'm not so perfect and strong. And yeah, that was a big
It
lesson.
was,
But
and if you don't mind sharing, because I do think it is a major, yeah, you're not alone, as you know.
yeah.
What was the addiction at the time that you were recovering from?
Oh my goodness, multiple. So we'll be honest, like I was a fancy girl. I told myself I was a fancy
A
girl.
fancy girl? Is that what you said? Yes, you're still a fancy girl.
Let's just say I hung around in the financial districts. So I was a fancy white girl. So I drank a lot of champagne just because it kept me from feeling sad. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna just be brutally in champagne bubbles and those things. Wow. Yeah. Whew. Okay. Get that out. Yeah. It kept me from feeling sad, and I didn't want to go home because my home was empty, and I didn't know. It's like all the things that I was doing and all the things that I was programmed to do, like work hard, and it just none of that was working. So yeah, I hit that wall, and then I just self imploded, and I looked at myself, and I was like, who is this person?
Yeah.
So yeah, so
So that's when we found you. And
oh yeah, that's when
and
you found me. And I had made this, right before I met you, I said, okay, I want to do something different with my life. I want to have a job where people care about me, where I don't have to work as hard, like killing myself, bending over backwards, where I can still focus on my recovery and some spiritual work and whatever else I'm working on. And they care about me at the end of the day. And and it was like literally like the job, I looked in the Craigslist, and it was like it was written just for me. Like we've talked about on the podcast, because I listen, like you said, I listened to every single one.
oh wait, yeah, you were part of our interview process where we asked some weird questions.
Yes, you did.
And you answered them
like
perfectly.
the universe answered my question. Like, I put it out there in the universe, this is what I'm looking for, and bam, there you go.
I think one of the questions was, and this was Maggie's idea, Maggie or Ron's, I forget. We were looking at how do you do interviews. We were new at the process. We had hired some not great fits for our company at the time, and we're like, we're not going to mess it up this time. And so we looked up, and Maggie's like, oh, you ask questions that are really weird and see if it throws them off and if they can research and do it right. One of the questions was, what's your spirit animal? Well, that was it, right?
Yeah, yeah. And
so what did you say? It was the answer to that question. We're like, her. I want her.
I said my spirit animal was the hummingbird, and it wasn't a lie, because it is my spirit animal. I mean, I do dabble. I mean, I've always like felt like a kindred spirit with the hummingbird, and people can listen to this and think, oh, that's silly, Jill. But if you were to ask me what it was, I was legitimately answering that question. So,
but it wasn't just hummingbird. And, a lot of applicants just skipped that. And that's what we wanted to see is like, if you get thrown something weird, are you going to just ignore it? Or are you going to answer it? Or are you going to research it and say, okay, if someone interviews you, the weird question, what do you do? You said a hummingbird, because hummingbirds are fast. They are, they're tireless. They're devoted, and I forget the other things, but, and beautiful, and beautiful, and they're spiritual. And I was like, oh yeah. And anyone who's going to ride their bike 5 miles and admit the situation that they're in and the recovery that they're in, it was like, yeah, we're going to give her a chance. I want to see if she's ready, for a new life. And indeed you stepped up. So, so then it wasn't much longer after that, when you were still living with all those people, that our office went on fire.
Yeah, it's literally, there was a fire in the office, the back of the office. There was
a homeless guy
was reading some magazines late at night or something, and had
naughty magazines, might we add?
Magazines we found, and burned the building.
Yeah, I think he was maybe starting a fire to warm himself. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you were there. It was, I don't know, you were very new to the company.
Yeah, it was 3 months in. It was right after. So I'd been there 3 months. Yeah, and we had to run the office, all the phones, and I was answering all the phones. And so I was answering them from this house that I'm living
with
in.
13 roommates.
13 roommates. And off of that internet connection, I was like, oh my gosh, this was trial by fire. Like, Kathy, I'm like, how am I going to do this? Because my roommates were a little interesting. You know, the best, I got to tell you, some of the most lifelong, wonderful friendships I've made in my life. Like, boy, was that a wonderful experience for that year that I was living there. But it was not a quiet environment.
Yeah. And I think you went to another place, kind of moved up, got a place, and it turns out the landlord was hitting on you and very scary.
Yeah, there was a little of that. And then there was, and I didn't have anything against it, but I mean, there was just some weed cultivation in the house. And I felt like if I was going to be sponsoring, I was at the point where I was going to sponsor others.
Sponsor others, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't feel like I should be able to bring them over if there's like a weed farm.
Yeah.
And I'm totally, by the way, totally support of that, like legalization and everything. I think it's amazing. So,
yeah, but if you're in recovery,
but if I'm in recovery and others, yeah, I just wouldn't think it would be.
Maybe not the environment. So
yeah.
Then, your next place, you kept moving up and you kept moving up at work and taking on more responsibility and proving yourself. And then, I mean, our members, who I hope are watching, who just love you. I will say at our live events, you remember everyone's name. You remember everything they told you. And they would come to our events to see you. I really believe that because of your love for our members. And I know we'll get comments from this podcast because I know that is true. And so it's kind of a bummer that you haven't been that beautiful shining face greeting people at our live events because we're not doing them right now. So I think it's really cool that you're here right now.
All right. So this will be like the substitute. So I'll be
yes. So if you want to just give a shout out to some of the members that you haven't been able to see, you can do that now.
Okay, Paul and Cheryl, hi. I love you guys. Darnell, hi.
Hi.
I know all of you guys. Like, I just miss seeing you guys at live events and seeing everybody give you guys a big hug. So,
all right. So it was right about when it was very obvious that it was time for you to have your own space and the importance of being able to create, your home. I mean, that's the business that we're in. We are in the business of providing homes for people. And here it's like, but what about Jill? And bouncing around, moving up, getting better and better. But it was time for Jill to own a home. You made enough money. So I think the first step was I asked you, because intuitively I thought, man, this woman is listening to all of these inspirational stories. I wonder if she's thinking, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Were you thinking that?
And I did. I wanted to do it. And I wanted to do the tiny home thing. Like I was really.
You were all into the tiny home thing.
I was all into the tiny home thing. And I had this idea. But then once I really did a lot of research on it, I'm like, I'm going to need to get a truck to haul this thing, and then that truck is going to be like $55,000 or whatever. Like the more I thought about it, I'm like, this is a little more than I thought it was going to be, and I don't know if I'm ready for that. But I still like the concept of living tiny, like small spaces. Like I don't need a giant house. But to start off with, like my own residence, my own place, something to call home, and also invest because I'm listening to the show. This is what I want to do. I need to have retirement. Like I don't feel like I'm getting older. Like I kind of.
You don't look like you're getting older.
But I know it's happening, Kathy. Like I need to think about these things. I need to think about planning for that. So,
So I think it was, I think I just said, go talk to a lender because it was right around the time that Karina, my 24-year-old daughter at the time, was looking to buy a car. And I said, honey, before you do that and add debt to your debt to income ratios, go just meet with a mortgage broker first and see if you can qualify for a home. She did. She found out she could qualify for a $300,000 loan with her just out of college job. And I did that show and you listened to it and it was like, what about you, Jill? If my daughter could do it, you could do it too. So I think I said, just we were going to do a coaching. We were going to do a coaching podcast to kind of get you moving towards it. And I said, before we do the interview, go talk to a lender, because that way we'll know what you can qualify for. And you did. And what did you learn from it?
So I can't believe I had put it off for so long. I think I just didn't think that I could qualify because I'd had some medical debt from before, from those years that like I didn't have health insurance. I would go to the hospital or the emergency room or whatever, but I didn't realize that doesn't count towards, it doesn't, anyways.
It doesn't affect your debt to income ratios?
Not for a home loan. They don't. That doesn't, like medical debt, I didn't realize that. So all of a sudden I was thinking that was going to impact me, but that was the only debt I had. I didn't have any credit card debt. I didn't have any of that stuff. So I went down to the lender and I got approved for like a $235,000 loan. And I was like, what?
Yeah. And that's when we discussed and just 3% down, right? 3.5% down. Yeah. So then the next problem was, well, where are you going to find a $235,000 home in Southern California? You were living in Northern California. And my daughter had just bought a $250,000 home in Chico. So there are parts of California where it can be done. But you were ready to reconnect with your family. And you'd been helping your grandma. So you moved back to Southern California and then wanted to stay near your family who you'd been away from for so many years. And so how on earth were you going to, how was this $235,000 approval going to help you in Southern California? Now your sister, turns out, is an agent, and she was determined to find that home, right?
She was. And she was tenacious, my sister, and she was looking for what I wanted. I know a lot of agents will go out there and they'll look at the dollar amount, but she knew I was looking for something small. And I swear this house was just meant for me. And it is.
And oftentimes when we're super clear, that is when we find the house that is meant for us. Every time that's happened to me, when I get really clear about the space I want and where I can thrive, I find it. And you did too. You wanted a tiny home, but you wanted land, and you wanted to be near your family and near your sister and near your nephews and your nieces and your grandma. And instead of being, 8 to 10 hours away from them, driving distance. And so the beautiful thing about wanting something a little bit different and a little bit odd is that nobody else wants it. So tell me about how your sister found the place that you're in, which is what's behind you, right?
This house. This is my home. I'm so proud of it. It is interesting because I was very specific, and I feel like I'd had an intention set in my mind of wanting a small space. I'd had a vision of like looking at a place with large windows that looked out onto mountains, and like I could see it in my mind before it appeared. And my sister was looking and found this house. It's a 1-bedroom. And that doesn't happen very often. That doesn't really exist. And it's literally like 10 miles from my mom's house, 10 miles from my sister's house. It overlooks the lake and the mountains. It has the glass windows.
And it has a lot of land.
It has a lot of land. It's on a 1/4 acre. It's like a little less than 600 square feet. I mean, it's not very big, but it has.
It's less than 600 square feet?
Yes. Yeah. It's tiny, but I could build. I have lots of plans for this place. Like I could put a pool or a hot tub, or like I could even add another tiny home on here and rent it out. I don't know.
You really could. Yeah, absolutely.
Just me.
Yeah.
I wanted a tiny house.
Yeah. How big is a tiny house normally? Is it about 600? No, sometimes they're even less.
Even less than that. Like it's like it could be like 300 square feet. But
so you have a big tiny home.
I do have I have a big tiny home, and it's just me, so I don't have very much to clean, and I like it that way. So.
Oh, it's wonderful. So it's just so odd. She found a 600 square foot 1-bedroom place close to her. with really not any other offers, right? And had it been,
No,
because it's not a
no,
house most people would want, right? Like
no,
most
it
people.
isn't.
So
Yeah,
that's great.
it was literally going for like 225,000 was what they were asking for it.
So I think at the time you were like, is that good? And I think I
Yeah,
said I don't remember, but it was something along the lines of, um, you can probably negotiate because this is not something that that people clamoring over. So you can, just get into contract and then negotiate down from there. So is that, I don't remember, but is that how you ended
yeah.
up doing it?
You
Okay.
said, okay, now we've got room to negotiate. And I'm like, okay, Kathy, all right, here's I was so excited. And I'm like, I hope they approve it because I have an FHA loan. And what happened was is they have to do an appraisal on the house. And the appraisal came out a lot lower than what they were
Oh, I
looking for.
think that's what I was so excited. I'm like,
Yeah, it came
great.
out like
Blame it on the appraisal.
195,000. And I was like, oh no, because they could reject it at that point, or they have to lower their price
Yeah.
and accept it. And so I was like, oh no, please don't let them like want to hold out for a cash buyer. And you're like, this is good. This is good. And sure enough, they accepted the lower. They had to well, they didn't have to, but they did lower it. And so I got the house for 195,000, which is, I got a house
Out
for
by Lake Elsinore, like a really nice part of Southern California.
yeah, overlooking the lake and the mountains, and less than $200,000 in Southern California.
And people come to your street to look at the poppies in the spring because they're covered with them.
Yeah, I tossed out a ton of poppy seeds like right after I moved here, and now the hill just gets covered in them.
And you sent me seeds. I haven't planted them yet. I need to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me how your life has changed since you've become a homeowner.
Oh my goodness. To me, it's this financial freedom, this independence for me it's everything. This is from the time I think probably before I could even walk. I think this is what I wanted. Just as a woman, to stand on my own 2 feet and to be able to have this and say, this is mine. And this allows me to make freedom of decisions, like even in my relationships, to be like, I have more breathing room as for like what I want and who I want to. Does that make sense?
You don't need a man to take care of you.
I don't need a man to take care of me, but like I can choose someone based on, because I like him. You know what I mean? Not because I feel like, oh my God, I gotta hurry. And
I need this person. No,
not because I need, because I want. And
it's almost like you'd be inviting them into your space. So it has to be someone.
Exactly. And so this is like, this place is sacred to me. Like, and I love that it's so tiny because I really can't fit anyone else in here. So I have to be really careful about who I let into my space. It's very special. I love my garden. But this is, Kathy, I had $5 in my pocket like 7 years ago, like before I came to Real Wealth. And it's not easy coming down from a hard fall for anyone, accepting that you failed at something in life that you set out to do. But like, I think sometimes when you start over and you build a solid foundation and you're really determined and you're really focused and you eliminate like the toxic things in your life and you surround yourself with good people, you can do anything, really. And like I feel like I'm living proof of that. It doesn't have to be like your idea of success doesn't have to be like what the big ball-in mansion or whatever. Like for me, this idea of success is my own little home and my little garden and a dog, and that's happiness for me. Like we are in the middle of a pandemic right now, and I'm finding little ways of being happy every day. so grateful that I have a job and that I have people that I work with that I love and I have family. And I know that it can be very different. I'm so grateful I went through that before all of this, because like, I feel like it's prepared me for a crisis. Like I know how to handle it. I know how to meditate during the day and soothe myself when I'm under stress. Like I haven't taken a drink.
Well, that's a really good point, because through the years of being at Real Wealth, you would have anxiety attacks.
Yeah.
And I haven't.
No.
So
I don't have them anymore.
What changed?
I believe, well, I'm on a little bit of medication, just like a mild antidepressant, but that helps. But I feel like a lot of it is meditation, acceptance, of the I'm not in control, and that's okay. I'm not in control, and that's okay. I think sometimes people get overwhelmed, and their body and their mind just would freak out. And also a lot of just, there was a lot of buried stuff in there. I think that was wanting to just come out.
Yeah.
And, so we're human beings. And I think we convince ourselves that we push ourselves so far. And then one day we have the panic attack and we don't understand what's happening to us.
Yeah.
And it's because we need to stop and address what's going on.
Yeah. Maybe some parts of ourselves that we've ignored.
Right. So that's what I did.
It takes courage, doesn't it, though?
Right. It really does. Some of the biggest, strongest people, like Kevin Love, had panic attacks. And it's usually a signal to us that there's something that we need to address that hasn't. So
it's maybe covered up, and you have found ways to to find the support you need, like because you're pretty committed and still a sponsor for
I can sponsor. I don't have any sponsees right now, but we have virtual meetings. The program, we have virtual meetings, and
you stay in that even when you're sober. And
I stay connected.
It's just a way to stay connected and honest.
I think it's one of those things that's like a muscle. When we're apathetic about it, when we think that we're doing great, it's always when it sneaks up on us. So,
really?
And we do it for other people. I mean, the reason we go is so that way there's newcomers there that we don't just go for us. We go for the newcomers that are there. So it's about.
I think that's a really interesting point, because, of course, we know that alcoholism and prescription drug abuse is up, especially during this pandemic. As people start to realize some of the things that they never slowed down enough to feel. Right. And the control thing. I mean, I'm super guilty of it too. I make Facebook posts thinking that I can make a difference in what feels like a world that's out of control to me. And there's the fact of the matter is I'm not probably going to be able to change it. I can have an influence perhaps, but there's so much holding on to, like, if it doesn't go this way, the world is doomed. And that is a very depressing place to be in. So I love what you said. We're not in control anyway. I mean, when you say that, who do you believe is in control?
I believe, like I didn't used to, but I believe that there's a higher power. I believe in God now. I didn't used to before. Like a source that we're all connected to, and what is affecting others affects all of us. And I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. And if you're not being affected by what's going on right now out there in the world, there's a numbness. There's something wrong. Like I feel like we're all feeling hurt and stressed and anxiety and pain, because we are ultimately all connected. And there's a darkness, I think, that wants to pull us apart and separate us from each other and wants us to defriend each other over silly comments not the silly comments. I feel like we need to stay connected, but we need to stay connected with purpose, and like call each other and say, how are you? And there's a
so true.
there's a person on the end of that screen, and a human being, and
And they're scared.
They are.
No matter what the opinion, it's amazing because the more I talk to people who may be far left, far right, and in the middle, whatever, their reasons for being afraid are different.
Mm-hmm.
But when you boil it down, it's actually the same thing.
Yeah.
If you think that that Trump is a Nazi, racist, is controlling people, that's terrifying. And if you think that the left is a socialist group trying to control us, either way, it's like people are freaking out that they're going to be controlled by something they don't want.
Yeah.
And that is a terrifying place to be. Where I've kind of come lately, especially with more and more news coming out about these children and child trafficking is bigger than we realized, and it's right under our noses and all around us. I mean, kind of like what you said, if we are all connected, then what kind of message can we be sending to everyone? So when I go out in prayer and meditation, that's the message I'm sending, is just love, like we're connected. Please feel this, feels what it feels like to be happy and feel safe and feel freedom. Because at the end of the day, that's our message at Real Wealth, right? It's never about the money, never about the money. It's about being the best version of you that you can be. Like Jill, it's just a house, but it's so much more than a house. It is your sovereignty.
Yes.
Right?
It is. This is everything to me. You're right.
It's your ability to stake your claim, which is one of the oldest American dreams, to stake your claim, your land. You do what you want with it. Immediately, you started a dog business. What's the company?
I call it Jack and Jill's dog sitting.
Yeah, she's a dog sitter. Because you can. It's your land. Mm-hmm. Where you couldn't maybe do that at someone else's house or whatever, or with roommates. So, it's one of the oldest, at least with our founding fathers, that the belief was that we can, if we own land, if we own our home, we can be profitable from that. And you were the perfect example of that. Like immediately you started this dog business, and you love animals. I mean, maybe not all of them, but most of them you've had. You've left.
A lot of animals on my land. Some of them we're not invited, but yes, a lot of animals here.
Best behaved little pups, but it was like a side business you could do because you own your land, and that is really what's behind Real Wealth is real wealth, like really envisioning your perfect life and making that happen. So I'm just super stoked. I'm sure we're way over time. I would like to end this with any tips you would give to somebody who hasn't taken, doesn't know how to acquire that first property, or let's start there. Yeah. So a tip for someone who isn't sure how to acquire that first property.
Okay, that's a good one. I would say, talk to a lender. See if you can get approved, because I didn't think I could get approved. You only need 3% down for your first home. And
if you don't have 3%, there's maybe people who will lend it, right?
Exactly.
Let someone who loves you. It's like $10,000. I need $10,000 for this. Is there somebody out there who will lend you $10,000 at a 6% or a 4% rate or whatever, or just pay me later when you refi and whatever? Usually there is somebody who will do that. Well, Jill, we got to wrap up. Thank you so much for sharing your heart with us today and sharing your wisdom. I know you will inspire others to create the lives of their dreams, and to be able to come out of challenging times, times where there's enormous anxiety. And I love what you said about really coming to your center, surrounding yourself with support, meditating, exercising, eating well. You didn't say that, but I know those are things that you're doing. And seeing you be able to pick yourself up and create success, it's been beautiful. So thank you for being here. Thank you all for joining me here on The Real Wealth Show. Again, you can go to realwealthshow.com to listen to this and any past episodes. And of course, you can find these episodes on iTunes. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.